Beloved, wherever you are watching from, I welcome you into this sacred moment. This is not just another morning, and this is not just another prayer. This is Thursday, the 26th of March, 2026, and you have been divinely positioned to begin this day with intention, authority, and spiritual alignment. Before the noise of the world competes for your attention, before responsibilities demand your strength, heaven has summoned you to stand still and acknowledge the source of your breath, your purpose, and your destiny. This morning, we are not rushing into the day, we are legislating the day. We are not reacting to circumstances, we are establishing spiritual order. When you begin your day with prayer, you are declaring that your life is not governed by chance, fear, or pressure, but by divine wisdom and supernatural power. Prayer is not a ritual for the weak. It is a strategy for those who understand authority. It is how we align earthly moments with heavenly mandates. As you prepare your heart, understand this. Every day carries its own spiritual climate. Every date has an assignment. And today, Thursday, March 26th, has been waiting for your voice. The atmosphere responds to sound, and when the righteous pray, systems shift, burdens lift, and doors begin to open. What you allow today will shape tomorrow, and what you confront in prayer will not be permitted to confront you in confusion. This is the hour to silence fear, cancel delay, and speak clarity into your path. You did not wake up by accident, you were awakened on purpose. There are conversations you will enter today, decisions you will make, and encounters you will experience that require spiritual covering. That is why prayer must come first. When prayer comes first, strength rises first. When prayer comes first, strength rises first. When prayer comes first, heaven moves ahead of you. As we enter this time of spiritual prayer, I want you to disengage from distraction and engage with expectation. You are not here to listen passively. You are here to participate prophetically. Your voice matters. Your agreement matters. Your faith matters. Today, we will speak to the morning. We will command alignment, and we will declare that this day will not drain you, delay you, or defeat you. So take a deep breath, center your spirit, and prepare to pray with authority. This is your moment to reset, to realign, and to rise. Heaven is attentive. The atmosphere is ready. And as we begin this day with prayer, we do so knowing that when we pray, things change, paths straighten, and destinies move forward. This day is not random, and this moment is not accidental. Before time began, this specific day was already written into divine order, carrying an assignment that requires your awareness, your alignment, and your agreement. You did not wake up into this day by chance. You were summoned into it by purpose. Heaven has already spoken concerning this date, and the responsibility now rests on you to come into alignment with what has been declared in the realm of the Spirit. When a day is divinely appointed, it demands recognition before participation. It demands alignment before movement. It demands spiritual consciousness before natural action. Every day carries a frequency, and that frequency responds to authority. When you rise without alignment, you enter the day as a responder, reacting to pressures, delays, and disruptions. But when you rise with prayer, you step into the day as a commander, setting boundaries, establishing order, and declaring outcomes. Alignment is not passive, it is intentional. It is the deliberate act of positioning your spirit under divine governance so that everything connected to you follows suit. When your spirit is aligned, your thoughts align. When your thoughts align, your decisions align. When your decisions align, your outcomes follow alignment. A divinely appointed day will test your posture before it reveals its provision. It will require you to choose purpose over pressure and spiritual discipline over emotional impulse. The enemy understands the value of alignment, which is why resistance often greets you in the morning. Distraction, heaviness, anxiety, and haste are tools designed to pull you out of position before the day fully unfolds. If alignment is lost early, The day becomes harder to navigate, not because the assignment changed, but because positioning was compromised. Alignment begins with acknowledgement. When you acknowledge God at the start of the day, you are declaring that your life is not self-governed. You are yielding authority over time, decisions, and outcomes to divine intelligence. This acknowledgement activates covering. It releases clarity. It sharpens discernment. What would have confused you later is exposed early. What would have drained you later is avoided altogether. Alignment saves energy because it prevents unnecessary battles. Spiritual alignment also establishes hierarchy. It reminds your soul that it is not in charge. It brings emotions under submission, silences fear, and restrains impulsive reactions. When alignment is present, you are not driven by urgency, but guided by wisdom. You are not pushed by pressure, but led by peace. The pace of the day changes when alignment is secured. You move deliberately, you speak intentionally, you respond prophetically rather than emotionally. A divinely appointed day responds to spiritual sound. What you declare early shapes what manifests later. When you align your words with heaven's intention, the atmosphere begins to cooperate. Doors recognize alignment. Opportunities respond to alignment. People encounter you differently when you are aligned. Resistance loses its voice. Confusion loses its power. Even opposition becomes directional, pushing you closer to purpose rather than away from it. Alignment does not remove responsibility, it enhances effectiveness. You still work, but you work with insight. You still decide, but you decide with discernment. You still face challenges, but you face them with authority rather than anxiety. Alignment does not promise ease, it guarantees order. And when order is established, chaos cannot dominate. What once overwhelmed you now submits to structure because divine alignment enforces divine order. This is why prayer must come before planning. Strategy without alignment produces effort without impact. Movement without alignment creates motion without progress. When you align first, you move with precision. You speak with accuracy. You discern timing. You recognize when to advance and when to pause. Alignment teaches you that not every opportunity is an assignment and not every open door is yours to walk through. A divinely appointed day also requires spiritual sensitivity. There are moments within the day that carry greater weight than others. There are conversations that shape seasons and decisions that unlock transitions. Alignment sharpens your awareness, so you recognize these moments when they appear. Without alignment, you rush past them. With alignment, you steward them. You listen more carefully. You respond more wisely. You discern what is being said beneath what is being spoken. Alignment positions you under divine protection. When you are aligned, you are covered. Misalignment exposes you to unnecessary conflict, emotional exhaustion, and spiritual leakage. Alignment seals your boundaries. It guards your mind. It preserves your strength. You do not give access to what does not belong. You do not carry burdens that were never assigned to you. You do not fight battles that prayer already resolved. A divinely appointed day requires cooperation, not control. Alignment teaches you how to partner with heaven rather than compete with it. You stop forcing outcomes and start following instruction. You stop striving for visibility and start moving with purpose. Alignment humbles the ego and elevates obedience. It trains your spirit to listen before acting and to wait before reacting. When you align yourself early, you give the day permission to work for you rather than against you. Time becomes an ally. Energy is preserved. Focus is sharpened. What would have taken hours is accomplished in moments. What would have caused frustration unfolds with ease. Alignment does not change the length of the day. It changes the quality of it. This is why the beginning of the day is sacred. The first moments carry the authority to shape the remaining hours. What you allow at the start sets precedent. What you declare at the beginning establishes expectation. When alignment is secured early, the rest of the day follows the order you have set. The morning listens, the afternoon responds, the evening reflects what was established at dawn. A divinely appointed day demands that you show up spiritually before you show up physically. Your presence must be anchored in purpose before your actions are released into motion. Alignment is how you ensure that you are not merely present, but positioned, not merely active, but effective, not merely busy, but impactful, not merely surviving the day, but stewarding it with intention, authority, and awareness that every step you take today is connected to something greater that is already unfolding in the realm of the Spirit. Prayer is not a religious routine reserved for quiet moments or desperate situations. It is a governmental act that releases authority into the atmosphere. When you pray, you are not asking permission to exist within the day. You are issuing declarations that shape how the day will respond to you. Ritual seeks comfort, but authority establishes order. Ritual repeats words out of habit, but authority speaks with intention. Understanding that sound carries power and words enforce outcome. When prayer is reduced to ritual, it loses force. But when prayer is understood as authority, it becomes a weapon that restructures environments and aligns systems. Authority in prayer begins with understanding position. You do not pray from beneath circumstances. You pray from above them. You are not pleading for survival. You are enforcing divine will. Authority does not beg, it commands. It does not panic, it legislates. When you pray with authority, you are stepping into your rightful position as one who has been entrusted with influence in the earth. Heaven responds to alignment, not desperation. The effectiveness of prayer is not measured by volume or emotion, but by alignment with divine order and clarity of intention. Every atmosphere responds to authority. Fear operates because it finds agreement. Confusion dominates because it is permitted. Delay persists because it is tolerated. Prayer interrupts these patterns by revoking permission. When you pray with authority, you are declaring what is allowed and what is forbidden in your space. You are drawing boundaries in the unseen realm that eventually manifest in the natural realm. Authority prayer does not wait for circumstances to change. It changes the rules that govern circumstances. Ritual prayer often focuses on comfort, seeking reassurance rather than transformation. Authority prayer focuses on outcomes. It understands that words spoken in alignment with heaven carry enforcement power. When you speak with authority, the atmosphere adjusts, resistance weakens, opposition recalibrates, even chaos begins to organize itself around the command that has been released. Authority prayer does not argue with problems, it outlaws them. Authority also requires responsibility. When you pray with authority, you become accountable for what you permit to continue. You can no longer claim helplessness while possessing the ability to legislate change. Authority prayer awakens spiritual maturity. It shifts your mindset from victim to steward. You stop asking why things are happening and start declaring how things will unfold. Authority prayer trains your spirit to think in terms of dominion rather than survival. When prayer is ritualistic, it often avoids confrontation. Authority prayer confronts immediately. It does not ignore patterns. It addresses them. It does not tolerate cycles. It dismantles them. Authority prayer understands that silence is agreement and delay is permission. This is why authority prayer must be intentional, direct, and unwavering. It speaks clearly because it knows confusion has no legal right to remain where clarity has been declared. Authority prayer also understands timing. It recognizes that the beginning of the day is a strategic window. What is declared early sets the tone for what follows. Authority prayer does not wait until damage is done. It preempts disruption. It speaks to the day before the day speaks back. It establishes order before chaos attempts entry. Authority prayer moves ahead of events and secures territory before conflict arises. Ritual prayer often seeks relief from pressure, but authority prayer removes the source of pressure. It addresses root causes rather than symptoms. It does not simply ask for peace, it commands disorder to leave. It does not merely request provision, it declares access. Authority prayer understands that heaven has already provided the mandate, and prayer is the means by which that mandate is enforced in real time. Authority prayer reshapes identity. The more you pray with authority, the more you see yourself as an enforcer of divine will rather than a passive observer. Your confidence increases not because circumstances improve immediately, but because your position becomes clear. Authority prayer removes intimidation. It silences the internal voices that question worth, timing, and capability. When you pray with authority, doubt loses its influence because alignment strengthens conviction. Authority prayer also demands precision. Vague prayers produce vague results. Authority speaks specifically because it understands that clarity invites cooperation. When you know what you are declaring, the atmosphere knows how to respond. Authority prayer does not ramble, it targets. It does not scatter words, it releases directives. It understands that spiritual environments respond to clear instruction. When prayer becomes authority, consistency replaces convenience. You no longer pray only when you feel the need. You pray because it is your responsibility. Authority prayer is not dependent on emotion. It is rooted in assignment. Whether you feel strong or tired, confident or uncertain, authority prayer operates from position, not feeling. This is why it remains effective even when emotions fluctuate. Authority prayer also teaches restraint. You learn when to speak and when to remain silent. You understand that not every situation requires explanation, but every situation requires alignment. Authority prayer is not about saying more, it is about saying what matters. It values impact over performance. It prioritizes results over appearance. When prayer is authority, fear cannot coexist. Fear requires uncertainty, but authority establishes certainty. The moment authority speaks, fear loses legitimacy. Anxiety dissolves because control shifts. Authority, prayer does not deny reality, it redefines it. It acknowledges challenges without submitting to them. It sees obstacles without surrendering to them. Authority prayer also establishes continuity. What you declare today echoes into tomorrow. When you consistently pray with authority, you create spiritual momentum. Each declaration builds upon the previous one. Each aligned prayer strengthens the framework you are constructing in the unseen. Over time, you notice that resistance decreases, clarity increases, and progress accelerates because the atmosphere has learned to respond to your voice. When prayer is ritual, it ends when the words stop. When prayer is authority, its effects continue long after the sound fades. Authority prayer lingers in the environment. It shapes decisions, influences interactions, and governs outcomes even when you are not consciously aware of it. Authority prayer works while you move through the day, ensuring alignment remains intact. Authority prayer requires courage. It demands that you believe what you say carries weight. It challenges you to trust that heaven backs what is spoken in alignment. Ritual prayer hides behind repetition. Authority prayer stands on conviction. It dares to speak boldly, knowing that silence would cost more than declaration. As you embrace prayer as authority, you begin to recognize that the atmosphere has been waiting for your voice. The day has been waiting for instruction. Circumstances have been waiting for boundaries. Authority prayer awakens you to the reality that you were never meant to endure the day you were meant to govern it. When you pray with authority, you stop negotiating with limitations and start enforcing divine order, shaping environments, redirecting outcomes, and establishing alignment that carries through every moment that follows. The morning is not silent, it is listening. Before schedules unfold and before voices begin to compete for your attention, the day stands open, waiting for instruction. Speaking to the morning is not poetic language, it is a spiritual act that recognizes that time responds to authority. When you address the morning intentionally, you are not talking to hours and minutes. You are engaging the atmosphere that will govern your movements, decisions, and encounter. The morning carries the authority of beginnings, and whatever is established at the beginning has the power to influence everything that follows. Order does not happen automatically, it is enforced. Without direction, the day defaults to disorder, driven by urgency, interruption, and reaction. When you speak to the morning, you interrupt randomness and replace it with structure. You are declaring that the day will not lead you, you will lead the day. Your words become the framework upon which events align. What you allow in silence often dominates in action. But what you confront in declaration loses its ability to control outcome. Speaking to the morning is an act of spiritual awareness. It acknowledges that clarity must be established before confusion attempts to enter. Confusion does not usually arrive loudly. It creeps in through distraction, divided focus, and emotional pressure. When clarity is declared early, confusion finds no place to attach. Your mind becomes settled, your thoughts become organized, your decisions become intentional. You are no longer scattered because order has been spoken into your internal and external environment. Direction is established through declaration. When you speak to the morning, you are setting a course. You are determining the flow of your energy and the focus of your attention. Direction removes wasted movement. It prevents detours that drain strength without producing progress. When direction is clear, you recognize what aligns and what does not. You know when to say yes and when to decline. You discern which conversations deserve your time and which ones are distractions. And the morning responds to voice because sound creates alignment. What you speak becomes instruction. The atmosphere adjusts to the authority behind the words. When you speak peace, agitation weakens. When you speak focus, distraction retreats. When you speak purpose, aimlessness dissolves. Speaking to the morning is how you take control of your inner world before attempting to navigate the outer world. It ensures that your reactions are governed by intention rather than impulse. Clarity is not the absence of challenges. It is the presence of understanding. When you speak to the morning, you are not denying that the day may hold pressure or resistance. You are declaring that pressure will not distort perception and resistance will not confuse direction. Clarity allows you to see obstacles without being intimidated by them. It enables you to address issues without emotional overload. When clarity is established, you remain steady even when circumstances fluctuate. Order brings rhythm to the day. Without order, everything feels urgent and overwhelming. With order, priorities emerge naturally. You know what requires immediate attention and what can wait. You move through tasks with efficiency rather than anxiety. Speaking to the morning sets this rhythm. It aligns your internal pace with divine timing. You stop rushing ahead of instruction and stop lagging behind opportunity. Speaking to the morning also establishes boundaries. Not everything deserves access to your time, emotions, or focus. When boundaries are declared early, intrusion is minimized. You are less reactive to negativity. You are less susceptible to emotional manipulation. You are less likely to absorb stress that does not belong to you. Boundaries spoken in the morning protect your energy throughout the day. Direction also brings confidence. When you know where you are headed, hesitation loses power. Indecision weakens because clarity has already been declared. Speaking to the morning reinforces trust in your path. You move forward without constantly second-guessing yourself. Confidence does not come from having all the answers. It comes from knowing that your steps are aligned with purpose. Order in the morning also affects interactions. When you speak clarity and direction early, your conversations become more productive. You listen better. You respond with intention rather than emotion. You are less defensive and more discerning. People sense alignment and respond differently to it. Order in you invites order around you. Speaking to the morning is also an act of spiritual discipline. It trains you to take responsibility for the atmosphere you carry. Rather than blaming the day for how you feel, you shape how the day will feel. Discipline replaces passivity. Intentionality replaces habit. Over time, this practice rewires your response to pressure. You stop waking up bracing for impact and start waking up prepared to lead. Clarity established in the morning protects you from unnecessary regret later. Many mistakes are not the result of ignorance, but of misalignment. When you speak to the morning, you align your intentions with your actions. You reduce impulsive decisions that require repair. You become more aware of consequences before choices are made. Clarity acts as a filter, screening what enters your day. Direction also conserves strength. When you are clear, you do not waste energy explaining yourself excessively or defending your choices unnecessarily. You are grounded, you are focused, you are efficient. Speaking to the morning ensures that your strength is invested where it matters most, rather than scattered across distractions. Order in the morning shapes the emotional tone of the day. Emotional turbulence often arises from feeling out of control. When you speak to the morning, you reclaim control at the level of intention. Emotions fall into alignment rather than dominating decisions. You experience stability even when challenges arise because your emotional state is anchored in clarity. Speaking to the morning is also prophetic. You are not just reacting to what you see, you are declaring what will be. Prophetic speech is not prediction, it is alignment with divine intent. When you speak order, clarity, and direction, you are aligning your expectations with purpose. The day begins to unfold in ways that mirror what has been declared because alignment invites cooperation. The morning is the gateway of the day. What passes through that gateway determines what fills the hours ahead. When you speak intentionally, you guard that gateway. You choose what enters and what remains outside. This practice transforms how you experience time. Hours feel fuller but less heavy. Tasks feel purposeful rather than draining. Speaking to the morning also strengthens spiritual sensitivity. You become more aware of subtle shifts in atmosphere. You recognize when something feels out of alignment and can address it quickly. Sensitivity sharpens discernment. Discernment improves decision making. Decision making aligned with clarity produces progress that feels steady rather than forced. When order, clarity, and direction are established early, momentum builds naturally. You are not pushing the day uphill, you are moving with it. Resistance feels lighter because alignment reduces friction. Progress becomes consistent rather than sporadic. Speaking to the morning is how you ensure that the day works with you rather than against you. This practice reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who survives days and start seeing yourself as someone who governs them. Authority becomes familiar. Responsibility becomes empowering. You recognize that your voice carries influence, not just in prayer, but in posture, attitude, and action throughout the day. As you speak to the morning, you are also teaching your spirit to lead rather than follow. You are reminding yourself that clarity is available, order is enforceable, and direction is accessible. Each declaration reinforces alignment. Each intentional word strengthens authority. Over time, the day learns your voice. The atmosphere responds more quickly. Confusion retreats faster. Order establishes itself more readily. The act of speaking to the morning is simple, but its effects are cumulative. What you declare consistently becomes the environment you live within. The morning becomes a partner rather than a battleground. The day unfolds with purpose rather than pressure. Clarity remains present even when challenges arise. Direction stays intact even when options multiply. Order holds even when demands increase because the foundation was established before the first step was taken. Delay is not always visible, but its effects are felt in hesitation, stagnation, and repeated cycles that produce effort without movement. Resistance often disguises itself as normal difficulty, and confusion frequently appears as too many options rather than no options at all. When these three operate together, they drain momentum and weaken confidence. Canceling delay, resistance, and confusion through intentional prayer is not about denying reality. It is about addressing the unseen permissions that allow these forces to operate unchecked. What is not confronted spiritually often persists naturally. Delay feeds on tolerance. The longer it is accepted as normal, the stronger it becomes. Many delays are not caused by lack of ability or opportunity, but by unseen opposition, exploiting hesitation and misalignment. Intentional prayer exposes delay by naming it. When you identify delay in prayer, you remove its disguise. You stop spiritualizing procrastination or normalizing stagnation. Intentional prayer brings clarity to what has been lingering without justification and calls it into accountability. Remember, in translation, counts in English as ah. Resistance thrives on intimidation. It attempts to convince you that progress will cost too much energy, courage, or risk. Resistance often shows up as internal friction, emotional fatigue, or unexplained reluctance. Through intentional prayer, resistance is confronted at its root rather than managed at its surface. You stop negotiating with discomfort and start addressing the force behind it. Resistance weakens when it is exposed to authority because it relies on fear and uncertainty to maintain control. Confusion is one of the most subtle disruptors of progress. It does not always create chaos. Sometimes it simply creates indecision. Confusion fragments focus and scatters energy. It convinces you to revisit decisions repeatedly, second-guess direction, and delay action under the illusion of caution. Intentional prayer restores clarity by realigning perception. It sharpens discernment so that what once felt complex becomes manageable and what once felt overwhelming becomes ordered. Canceling these forces requires intention because none of them leave on their own. Delay does not resolve itself with time. It deepens. Resistance does not disappear with avoidance. It strengthens. Confusion does not clear without clarity. It multiplies. Intentional prayer interrupts their operation by removing legal ground. It declares that these forces no longer have permission to influence thought patterns, decisions, or outcomes. Intentional prayer is specific. It does not speak in generalities. It identifies what must be removed and declares what must replace it. When delay is canceled, momentum is established. When resistance is canceled, ease replaces friction. When confusion is canceled, clarity takes its place. Intentional prayer understands that removal must be followed by replacement, or the vacuum will invite the same patterns back. A canceling delay also restores urgency without anxiety. Urgency rooted in fear creates pressure, but urgency rooted in alignment creates focus. Intentional prayer recalibrates urgency so that action is motivated by purpose rather than panic. You move forward not because you are afraid of falling behind, but because alignment propels you ahead. Delay loses its hold when movement becomes intentional rather than forced. Resistance often attaches itself to past experiences. Previous failures, disappointments, or unresolved outcomes can create internal barriers that resist forward motion. Intentional prayer addresses these attachments. It separates present assignment from past experience. It releases emotional residue that fuels resistance. When the past is neutralized, resistance loses one of its primary power sources. Confusion frequently arises when too many voices are given equal authority. Opinions, expectations, and comparisons create noise that drowns out clarity. Intentional prayer quiets these voices by reestablishing hierarchy. It reminds the soul which voice leads and which voices follow. When hierarchy is restored, confusion diminishes because decision-making becomes anchored rather than scattered. Canceling resistance also restores confidence. Resistance erodes confidence by magnifying difficulty and minimizing capability. Intentional prayer realigns perspective so that capability is seen accurately and difficulty is assessed realistically. Confidence does not mean the absence of challenge, it means the presence of trust. When trust is restored, resistance loses influence. Intentional prayer also dismantles cycles. Delay, resistance, and confusion often repeat because they are never fully addressed. You move forward briefly, then stall again. Intentional prayer breaks this repetition by addressing the pattern rather than the symptom. Once the pattern is exposed, it can no longer operate invisibly. Awareness combined with authority produces lasting change. Canceling confusion restores decisiveness. Decisiveness is not recklessness. It is clarity in motion. When confusion is removed, decisions become cleaner and follow through becomes stronger. You stop revisiting what has already been settled. You conserve energy by moving forward instead of circling the same choices repeatedly. Decisiveness accelerates progress because it eliminates unnecessary delay. Intentional prayer also strengthens alignment between thought and action. Many delays occur because intention and action are misaligned. You want progress, but your habits support stagnation. You desire clarity, but your focus is divided. Intentional prayer brings these elements into agreement. When thought and action align, movement becomes natural rather than forced. Resistance often exploits fear of outcome. Fear of failure, fear of success, or fear of change can all create internal opposition. Intentional prayer confronts these fears directly. It removes their authority by exposing their lack of foundation. Fear loses power when it is named and addressed. Once fear is dismantled, resistance no longer has a platform to stand on. Canceling delay also restores timing. Delay distorts perception of time, making it feel as though opportunities have passed or seasons have been missed. Intentional prayer realigns timing by restoring perspective. You recognize that alignment redeems time. What felt lost can be recovered through focused action and clarity. Timing becomes cooperative rather than adversarial. Confusion thrives in divided attention. Intentional prayer recenters focus. It gathers scattered thoughts and brings them under intentional direction. Focus sharpens discernment. Discernment improves response. When focus is restored, confusion fades because the mind is no longer pulled in competing directions. Intentional prayer also restores authority over internal dialogue. Many delays and resistances are reinforced by repeated internal narratives that undermine confidence and clarity. Intentional prayer interrupts these narratives. It replaces them with declarations that reinforce alignment. Over time, internal dialogue shifts from doubt to direction. Canceling resistance also restores emotional balance. Emotional imbalance often fuels resistance by exaggerating difficulty and diminishing resilience. Intentional prayer stabilizes emotions by anchoring them in truth rather than reaction. Stability improves endurance. Endurance sustains progress even when challenges persist. When delay is canceled, action becomes timely. When resistance is canceled, action becomes lighter. When confusion is canceled, action becomes accurate. Intentional prayer ensures that action is not just movement, but movement in the right direction. Progress accelerates because obstacles no longer drain energy unnecessarily. Intentional prayer is proactive rather than reactive. It addresses potential interference before it manifests fully. This preemptive approach reduces the need for recovery later. When interference is canceled early, momentum is preserved. Preservation of momentum compounds progress over time. As these forces are canceled, space is created for flow. Flow is not the absence of effort. It is effort aligned with purpose. In flow, tasks feel manageable, decisions feel clear, progress feels steady. Intentional prayer establishes the conditions necessary for flow by removing what disrupts alignment. Canceling delay, resistance, and confusion also reshapes expectation. You begin to expect movement rather than stagnation, cooperation rather than opposition, clarity rather than uncertainty. Expectation influences perception. Perception influences response. Response influences outcome. Intentional prayer recalibrates expectation so that it supports progress rather than hindering it. This practice builds spiritual confidence. Each time you confront and cancel interference intentionally, your awareness of authority increases. You become quicker to recognize delay, resistance, and confusion when they attempt to reappear. Early recognition allows for early intervention, preventing these forces from gaining momentum. Intentional prayer does not remove responsibility, it sharpens it. You become more aware of the role you play in allowing or canceling interference. This awareness empowers rather than burdens. You recognize that progress is not dependent on perfect conditions, but on aligned response. As delay, resistance, and confusion are canceled, clarity expands. Momentum strengthens. Confidence stabilizes. Progress becomes sustainable rather than sporadic. The path ahead feels less obstructed, not because challenges vanish, but because authority has been established over what once hindered movement, allowing alignment to govern each step as it unfolds. Alignment is not abstract. It is practical, intentional, and lived out through decisions, conversations, and encounters. Every interaction you step into today carries potential influence. Words spoken, responses chosen, and attitudes displayed either reinforce alignment or create friction. Aligning these elements with divine purpose requires awareness before engagement. You do not enter conversations randomly, and you do not make decisions in isolation. Each moment is connected to a broader narrative that is unfolding. And alignment ensures that your participation strengthens that narrative rather than distorting it. Decisions are spiritual transactions. Even the smallest choices carry weight because they direct energy, time, and focus. When decisions are aligned with divine purpose, they produce coherence rather than conflict. Misaligned decisions often feel rushed, pressured, or emotionally charged. Aligned decisions carry peace, even when they are challenging. Alignment does not remove complexity, it provides clarity within complexity. It helps you discern not just what you can do, but what you should do. Alignment begins internally before it manifests externally. Your values must be settled before your choices can be stable. When values are unclear, decisions fluctuate. When values are aligned, decisions become consistent. Consistency builds trust, both within yourself and in your relationships. People respond differently to someone whose decisions are rooted in purpose rather than impulse. Alignment communicates integrity without explanation. Conversations are gateways. Through them, information is exchanged, influence is transferred, and direction is often determined. Aligning conversations with divine purpose requires intentional listening as much as intentional speaking. Not every thought needs to be voiced, and not every opportunity to speak requires a response. Alignment teaches restraint. It guides you to speak when your words will build, clarify, or redirect, and to remain silent when silence preserves order. When conversations are aligned, they produce understanding rather than confusion. Even difficult discussions become constructive because the goal is clarity, not dominance. Alignment removes the need to prove or defend unnecessarily. You communicate from conviction rather than insecurity. Your tone reflects purpose. Your words carry weight because they are anchored in intention. Encounters are not accidental. Every person you meet today intersects with your journey in some way, whether briefly or significantly. Aligning encounters with divine purpose requires discernment. Not every connection is meant to be cultivated, and not every interaction is meant to continue beyond its moment. Alignment helps you recognize the role each encounter plays without overinvesting or underestimating its significance. When alignment governs encounters, you remain present without becoming entangled. You can engage fully without losing focus. You can be compassionate without being drained. Alignment establishes boundaries that protect your energy while allowing meaningful connection. These boundaries are not walls. They are filters that ensure what enters your space contributes to purpose rather than detracting from it. Aligning decisions also involves timing. Purpose is not only about what you do, but when you do it. A good decision made at the wrong time can produce unnecessary resistance. Alignment sharpens timing by increasing sensitivity. You recognize when to move quickly and when to wait. Waiting is not hesitation. When it is aligned, it is preparation. Alignment removes anxiety from waiting because you trust the process. Conversations aligned with purpose often reveal direction. Through dialogue, insight emerges and perspective expands. Alignment allows you to receive correction without defensiveness and affirmation without dependency. You can evaluate what is said without surrendering authority over your path. Discernment filters advice so that only what aligns with purpose is retained. Encounters aligned with divine purpose often feel significant even when they are brief. There is a sense of clarity, confirmation, or redirection. Alignment heightens awareness so you recognize these moments as they occur. Without alignment, such encounters pass unnoticed or are misunderstood. Alignment enables you to steward them wisely. Alignment also reduces regret. Many regrets stem from decisions made under pressure or conversations handled reactively. When alignment guides your responses, you are less likely to act in ways that require repair later. Even when outcomes are not ideal, you retain peace because your actions were intentional and aligned. Aligning decisions requires courage. Purpose-aligned choices are not always popular or convenient. They may require saying no when it would be easier to say yes. They may require walking away from options that appear beneficial but compromise alignment. Courage grows as alignment strengthens because clarity replaces fear. Conversations aligned with purpose often challenge comfort. Alignment does not avoid truth to maintain peace. It speaks truth to establish peace. This kind of communication builds trust over time, even if it creates temporary discomfort. Alignment values long-term integrity over short-term approval. Encounters aligned with purpose often refine character. Through them, patience is tested, humility is strengthened, and wisdom is developed. Alignment allows you to learn without becoming bitter. You extract growth from experience rather than carrying offense. Each encounter becomes an opportunity for refinement rather than frustration. Alignment also brings coherence to the day. Decisions, conversations, and encounters no longer feel disjointed or draining. They connect logically and spiritually. There is a sense of flow because actions are not competing with each other. Energy is conserved because you are not constantly recalibrating after misalignment. Aligning decisions involves surrendering the need for control. Purpose-driven alignment trusts guidance beyond personal preference. This surrender does not weaken you, it stabilizes you. You become less reactive to external pressure because your direction is anchored internally. Conversations aligned with purpose often invite mutual respect. Even disagreement is handled with dignity. Alignment removes the need to dominate discussions. You can assert truth without aggression. You can listen without losing authority. This balance creates healthier communication patterns. Encounters aligned with purpose often bring unexpected provision. Through them, resources, opportunities, or insights emerge. Alignment positions you to recognize and receive what is offered. Without alignment, provision can be overlooked or mishandled. Alignment requires daily reinforcement. Yesterday's alignment does not automatically carry into today. Each day presents new decisions, new conversations, and new encounters. Intentional alignment ensures that purpose remains central regardless of changing circumstances. Aligning these elements also shapes reputation. Over time, people recognize consistency, clarity, and integrity. Trust builds because actions align with words. This reputation is not manufactured. It is the natural result of sustained alignment. Alignment transforms how you experience responsibility. Responsibility becomes meaningful rather than burdensome because it is connected to purpose. You understand why you are doing what you are doing. This understanding sustains motivation even when tasks are demanding. When decisions, conversations, and encounters align with divine purpose, momentum increases. Progress feels steady rather than forced. Challenges feel manageable rather than overwhelming. There's a sense of partnership with purpose rather than constant resistance. Alignment also enhances gratitude. You become more aware of progress, provision, and growth. Gratitude reinforces alignment by keeping focus on what is working rather than what is lacking. This focus influences perception and strengthens resolve. Aligning with divine purpose does not eliminate uncertainty, but it reduces confusion. You may not know every outcome, but you know the direction. Direction provides confidence even when details are unclear. Each aligned decision strengthens discernment. Each aligned conversation refines communication. Each aligned encounter deepens awareness. Over time, alignment becomes instinctive rather than forced. You recognize misalignment quickly and correct course efficiently. Alignment ensures that your participation in the day contributes to something greater than immediate results. Decisions ripple beyond the moment. Conversations influence more than just the present exchange. Encounters shape future opportunities. Alignment connects the immediate to the eternal, the practical to the purposeful, the daily to the divine. Victory is not something you chase throughout the day. It is a position you occupy before the day begins. Beginning the day from a position of victory means you do not wake up trying to overcome the day, but rather stepping into it with an established sense of authority and assurance. Strength and dominion are not emotional states. They are spiritual postures. When you begin the day grounded in these postures, circumstances lose their ability to define your confidence or dictate your responses. Victory at the start of the day reframes perspective. Challenges no longer appear as threats, but as opportunities to exercise authority. You do not measure your capacity by the size of the obstacle, but by the stability of your position. This shift changes how pressure is experienced. Pressure becomes information rather than intimidation. You assess it, respond to it, and move through it without internal collapse because your identity is not attached to outcome. Strength at the beginning of the day is cultivated through alignment rather than effort. True strength is not the absence of fatigue, but the presence of resilience. It is the ability to remain steady when demands increase. When you begin the day intentionally, strength is distributed wisely. You do not exhaust yourself early by reacting to everything. You conserve energy by responding only to what aligns with purpose. Dominion is the confidence to govern your internal world before attempting to influence the external one. Beginning the day in dominion means emotions do not lead decisions, thoughts do not wander unchecked, reactions are measured rather than impulsive. Dominion establishes internal order, and internal order produces external effectiveness. You cannot consistently lead environments you have not first mastered internally. Victory also establishes expectation. What you expect influences what you prepare for. When you expect defeat, you brace for impact. When you expect victory, you prepare to advance. Preparation affects posture, posture affects performance. Beginning the day with a victorious expectation shifts your posture from defensive to proactive. You move with intention rather than hesitation. Strength grows when it is exercised appropriately. Beginning the day with strength does not mean exerting maximum force immediately. It means knowing when to apply effort and when to rest. Wisdom governs strength. You recognize that endurance is built through pacing. This awareness prevents burnout and sustains momentum throughout the day. Dominion also includes authority over time. When you begin the day in dominion, time does not rush you. You steward it. You are less reactive to urgency and more responsive to priority. You understand that not everything urgent is important and not everything important is urgent. Dominion brings clarity to scheduling, focus, and follow through. Victory at the beginning of the day also neutralizes intimidation. Intimidation thrives when confidence is unstable. When you begin from victory, intimidation finds no foothold. You do not shrink in the presence of pressure. You do not overcompensate in the presence of opposition. You remain grounded, aware, and composed. Strength is reinforced through consistency. Each morning, you begin from a place of strength. You reinforce the habit of resilience. Over time, strength becomes your default rather than a resource you have to search for. This consistency creates emotional stability. Stability improves decision-making. Decision-making aligned with strength produces progress that is steady rather than sporadic. Dominion requires clarity of boundaries. Beginning the day with dominion means you decide in advance what you will allow and what you will not. Boundaries are not reactions, they are declarations. When boundaries are clear, you are less likely to compromise under pressure. Dominion preserves integrity by protecting alignment. Victory also shapes language. The way you speak reflects the position you occupy. Beginning the day from victory influences your internal dialogue and external communication. You speak with assurance rather than apology. You articulate needs without guilt. You express confidence without arrogance. Language aligned with victory reinforces authority. Strength at the start of the day also affects adaptability. When strength is rooted in alignment rather than rigidity, you can adjust without losing stability. Unexpected changes do not dismantle you because your strength is not dependent on predictability. You adapt while remaining anchored. This balance allows you to navigate complexity without overwhelm. Dominion also involves responsibility. Authority without responsibility becomes control, but dominion carries accountability. Beginning the day in dominion means you accept responsibility for your responses. You do not blame circumstances for emotional reactions. You recognize your capacity to choose alignment even when situations are challenging. Victory at the beginning of the day influences how you interpret feedback. Feedback is no longer a threat to identity, but information for growth. You can receive correction without defensiveness and affirmation without dependency. Victory stabilizes self-perception, allowing learning to occur without insecurity. Strength is also relational. Beginning the day with strength improves how you engage with others. You listen without feeling diminished. You assert boundaries without hostility. You support without self-neglect. Strength creates balance in relationships because it prevents extremes of passivity and aggression. Dominion includes mastery over attention. Beginning the day in dominion means you decide where your attention will go. Attention is a form of power. What you focus on grows. Dominion ensures that focus is intentional. You are less susceptible to distraction because your attention is anchored to purpose. Victory also reduces fear of failure. When you begin the day from victory, failure is no longer an identity threat. It becomes a learning opportunity rather than a defining moment. This perspective encourages initiative. You are more willing to act, to try, to engage, because fear no longer paralyzes movement. Strength is sustained through alignment with truth. Beginning the day grounded in truth stabilizes emotions and thoughts. Truth provides perspective. Perspective reduces distortion. When perception is accurate, responses are appropriate. Strength flows naturally when reality is interpreted through alignment rather than fear. Dominion shapes resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover without losing direction. Beginning the day in dominion means setbacks do not derail purpose. You recalibrate rather than retreat. Recovery becomes efficient because alignment remains intact. Victory also influences gratitude. When you begin the day from victory, gratitude is not dependent on outcomes. You recognize progress even in process. Gratitude reinforces strength by shifting focus from lack to provision. This focus sustains motivation and reinforces confidence. Strength at the beginning of the day improves endurance. You are less likely to give up prematurely because you are not starting from depletion. Endurance allows you to persist through difficulty without losing composure. Composure preserves clarity. Clarity supports effective action. Dominion also involves humility. True dominion does not need to prove itself. It operates quietly, confidently, and consistently. Beginning the day in dominion removes the need for comparison. You focus on your assignment rather than measuring yourself against others. Victory at the start of the day creates momentum. Momentum reduces resistance because movement is already established. You are less likely to stall because you began with intention. Each aligned action builds upon the previous one, creating forward motion that feels natural rather than forced. Strength shapes confidence, but confidence shaped by alignment remains stable. It does not fluctuate with praise or criticism. Beginning the day with this kind of confidence allows you to remain steady regardless of external validation. Dominion over the day also includes emotional regulation. Emotions are acknowledged but not obeyed blindly. Beginning the day in dominion means emotions inform but do not control. This regulation improves judgment and reduces regret. Victory transforms how you end the day as well. When you begin from victory, the day is evaluated through growth rather than loss. Reflection becomes constructive rather than condemning. You recognize what was accomplished and what can be improved without self-criticism. Beginning the day from a position of victory, strength, and dominion is a deliberate choice. It is the decision to lead rather than follow, to govern rather than react, to stand firm rather than brace for impact. This choice shapes the entire trajectory of the day, influencing how challenges are met, how opportunities are stewarded, and how purpose is advanced through each moment that unfolds.